Alright, auditory processing disorder in children is the disorder I chose for my course project. This is done by me, CRussell of Rasmussen College. So what is auditory processing disorder? As described by one website, auditory processing disorder is the reduced or impaired ability to discriminate, recognize, or comprehend complex sounds such as those used in words, even though hearing is normal. The brain has difficulty making sense of these sounds that we hear. In order for our brain to process the information that we hear, we must first have the ability to hold that information. Two systems that are involved in this disorder would include the auditory pathways of the brain, as well as the ear and all of the bones associated with the ear. First, let's talk about the brain. The brain cortex is what receives the electrical impulses that are sent as signals for us to interpret. And like I said before, in order for the brain to process that information, we have to be able to hold that information. And that would mean that we would need to have some good short-term memory. And children with auditory processing disorder struggle very much with sensory overload associated with that short-term memory. In order for these messages to be processed, we must be able to have time, to relay that next piece of information. And people with auditory processing disorder have problems with interpretations coming in delayed or distorted. Therefore, they're not hearing things the way that normal people could hear things. The ear is the next system that would be involved. The sounds that we hear are accurately received, then sent to parts of the brain that would need to interpret that, and then those things that we interpret is what we act upon. The words are received as sound pressure waves. In the middle ear, if you could see this picture, the sound pressure waves are converted to vibrations that are transmitted through the bones, which are the cochlea and the vestibule, as shown in the picture, to the inner ear. And the vibrations are converted to electrical impulses, which are the impulses that the brain receives to analyze that information. Etiology of auditory processing disorder, which is the cause of the disorder. The cause of this disorder is still unknown. It could be a variety of different things that could be associated with other deficits or disabilities such as ADHD or ADD, any deficit disorders, learning disorders. Many children are very hyperactive. Different things that may be the cause of this disorder could be head trauma, tumors in the brain, degenerative disorders, childhood viruses, oxygen deprivation, lead poisoning, brain development issues, or it could be none of those things. Children who have had a lot of ear infections in their past as a young child are more prone to auditory processing disorder than children who have not had a lot of ear infections. The antibiotic that is mostly prescribed that I found in my research of this disorder is amoxicillin. Amoxicillin is known to be effective only 85% of the time. Therefore, we're treating the infection, but that fluid buildup is not being treated. So the hearing loss is still happening during that time. So that also may be associated with the cause of auditory processing disorder. Signs and symptoms of auditory processing disorder. Children seem to get very easily distracted, very disorganized, forgetful, poor memory, which has to do with that short-term memory loss. very poor listening skills. They seem to tune you out and ignore you or say they didn't hear you, which is something in my family that we experience a lot with my stepson. Language difficulty is a big one. Low academic performance in school, which many times the diagnosis of auditory processing disorder does not come up till about first grade, grade school, where they're showing more signs and symptoms of this disorder because they are having very low academic performance and a lot of difficulty in school. Behavior problems, difficulty carrying out multi-step directions. It's easier for these children to take things one step at a time than if you were to say, hey, sit down, put your socks on, put your shoes on, tie them. They tend to only hear one of those things, most likely the last step that you repeated to them. They have difficulty reading, vocabulary problems, speech, and comprehension are all signs and symptoms to auditory processing disorder. Treatment options available for auditory processing disorder could include electronic devices to allow a child to focus on a speaker and reduce that background noise. And the background noise kind of tunes the speaker out. So anything to reduce that may help them better focus on you. The electronic device is kind of like shown in this picture here. It's kind of like a hearing aid. Strengthening central nervous system resources. One-on-one therapy with a therapist helps the child a lot to focus on you. They have time to talk to you, let them know how they feel and their frustrations, with their issue, with their problems. Our stepson now is going through one-on-one therapy because he's showing a lot of signs of this, and it seems to be helping him improve a lot. Auditory memory enhancement and auditory integration training are all treatment options available for children with APD. Helping your child at home. Now, this is something that if you have ever experienced a child showing signs of auditory processing disorder, a sensory disorder even, children very hyperactive or kind of forgetful, these are some things that may help you help your child at home. Making eye contact is a big one. A lot of times children are kind of just all over the place, and they want to run around, they want to be hyperactive, and they kind of just look away from you and tune you out. Helping them to focus on you and make eye contact helps them to keep your attention and helps you to listen to them and what they may need to say. Make instructions simple. When you're doing homework with them, if you're having them sit down, we have our stepson sit down and do workbooks. Having him sit down and do step-by-step kind of one-on-one simple instructions help them to make the process a little bit easier. Speak at a louder rate and a lower rate and a louder volume. We kind of have to speak a little bit slower for him and a little bit louder to get, his attention on you. And you have to be very patient with the child. Because as soon as they see that you're getting frustrated, then they think you're mad, and then they get frustrated, and things don't go very easy that way. And I just wanted to include at the end of this that children with auditory processing disorder, the more help they have, the more one-on-one focused attention, they can learn to become active participants in daily activities. It will be hard, it will be a struggle, and it could be very difficult for them, but eventually you can start to see improvements, and we've already started to experience that, and it has taken a lot of time, a lot of patience, but it can be done, and the obstacles can be overcome.